What's up YouTube? KS Gun Guy here. Happy February. If you like what you see here, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the video. There are plenty more coming over the next several months. So I've got in front of you today an FNS 9C. And if you're looking at different concealed carry options, probably for something like this, there are a lot of options out there. You've got Glocks, you've got Springfield Armories, you've got Sig Sauers, Smith & Wessons, lots of different options. And when you're trying to decide what might be a good double-stack subcompact gun, man, it can be really tough. I know for sure with so many options. So what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about the FN and how it stacks up, at least in this case, to the Sig Sauer P320 subcompact. And I'm doing this really because this was a special request by several people on comments on the P320 subcompact video I've got. If you haven't seen that video, be sure to check it out. And they really wanted to know, how does this stack up? And at first I was kind of curious as to why, with some of the other options that might be, and I'll use this word carefully, more popular. And I'm not saying that FN isn't a great gun, but just there might be some other guns like Glocks and Smith & Wessons that are a little bit more popular due to name recognition and time on the market. And I'll use that loosely as well, and I'll come back to that here in a second. But time in the market for just guns that are common and prevalent at a lot of gun stores around the country. Now, time on the market, I have to be a little bit careful because FN goes back to the 1800s. So FN has been around a long time, and they certainly have a very good, deep, dedicated history to military firearms. And so I find FN, especially the FNS line, to be sort of following a little bit in that military tradition. And I don't mean that this was necessarily built military specific, but I think by way of tolerances and some of the features on the guns that it reminds me of a little bit more of a duty firearm almost, not only the subcompact, but also its compact brother as well, just in fit and finish and everything. So let's go ahead and take a look at the gun and talk about it a little bit. Of course, it is unloaded and will remain so throughout the rest of the video, as all guns are on these videos. I've got in here right now a 12-round flat magazine, and I'll kind of wheel in some of the other magazines, what all comes with the gun here in just a moment. But before I do, let's go ahead and knock some specs out of the way here. The overall length of the 9C is going to be 6.7 inches. The height is going to be 5.2 inches, and that is with the flat magazine. The width on the gun is going to be 1.35 inches. The barrel is going to be 3.6 inches. The weight on the gun is going to be 23.4 ounces. Now, the finish on it, they don't actually say on the website, so I don't know if this is some sort of maybe a tinifer finish or something like that, but I think they just call it a black matte finish, rather. And, well, I would agree. It's certainly black and it's matte. It's actually a nice finish. It's got just enough texture. It's not very slick, so it doesn't really remind me of maybe some of those really early Gen 3 Glocks that your hand would slide right off. There is a little bit to bite onto, which is really nice. Now, in the box, I think there are a couple of different versions. You can get ones that are sort of fully loaded, like this one is, and then you can also get ones that maybe are not fully loaded, especially from a sights standpoint. So this one does have night sights on it, which is kind of nice. It is a Novak style rear sight, and the black is serrated for glare, and the front does have a white outline, which is really nice. So it grabs your attention a little bit more when you're at the range, when you're shooting, and I like this setup quite a bit. If I'm going to be carrying a gun, I do generally prefer to have night sights. It's not absolute, but it's nice to have, and for a couple of extra dollars to go ahead and bump up to the night sights, it's really nice. Now, this fully loaded version also comes with 3 magazines. It does come with the 12-round flat magazine, and I'm going to come back to this as well. It does also have a 12-round magazine with a finger extension. It doesn't add any rounds or anything like that, but it does have the finger extension, which is nice. Gives you a little bit more grip. And then speaking of grip, it actually also comes with a 17-round full-size magazine. So when you're talking grip, this really does allow for a full-size grip, and that's really nice from a backup magazine standpoint. So you can kind of decide if you like the flat, if you're concerned more about printing, that sort of thing, or you could do the extended, the pinky extension magazine, if you will, and then go with the full-size magazine as a backup. It's a great option. So that's what you can expect in the box, and then the usual, paperwork and lock, that sort of thing that comes with it. Now, some other features of the gun from an exterior standpoint, I mentioned the finish on it, and along with the finish, it actually is serrated both in the front and the back, so you could certainly grab it from the back, and if you're into press checks, you can definitely do that. Now, the spring on the FN it's pretty tight, so it's a firm spring. I know it would get worn in, of course, and settle down a little bit, but it's quite a bit to hold on to. So if you're worried about maybe dexterity in your hands, you don't have quite as much strength, you may want to go to a gun shop and check this out and see if this is something that you're going to be comfortably able to operate, of course. I mean, I think that's the most important thing, but also something you're going to enjoy being able to operate. There's a little bit of a difference between the two, more from perhaps a life-threatening standpoint or life-saving standpoint to just a fun range plinker or shooter perhaps, and this definitely can be. Of course, I'll wheel in some shooting along the way and a little deeper dive into shooting here in just a little bit. Some other exterior features of the gun, it does have a rail for lights, lasers, and grenade launchers, which is nice. If you've seen any of my other videos, including the P320 subcompact, I don't really care about a rail for a carry gun, especially a subcompact or certainly a single stack, but it's nice to have that option, especially if you really are into carrying a light or a laser or something like that with it. You definitely can. From a grip standpoint, it does have pretty aggressive texturing, and it does have back plates that you can switch out, which is nice. So for the texturing, it is borderline almost too much, in my opinion. It's great texturing. The gun is not going to go anywhere when you're shooting it. After about 150 or so rounds, I did notice that I took some of the texturing with me with my hands for a little while. It does dig into you. However, it's not uncomfortable. You can continue to shoot it. But again, this is one of those times where you may want to hold this next to some other guns in the same line and decide if this really is the comfortable fit and finish that you're looking for from a grip standpoint. So it is also ambidextrous from a slide release standpoint, which is nice. And it also, out of the box, is ambidextrous from a magazine release standpoint. So you don't have to flip around any buttons or anything. So for you lefties, it's ready to go out of the box. I really like that option. No, I'm right-handed, but still, it's nice that you can do that right out of the box. So from a trigger standpoint, and there are a couple of criticisms I have of this gun. Not many. I mean, I think it's a top quality gun, especially from fit and finish standpoint. And I know it's going to be a reliable gun, and it has been so far for me. But if we're going to get into trigger snobbery here for a moment, and I'm not really a trigger snob, but having experienced a lot of different firearms, especially with the reviews I've been doing over the last 3 months, but even before then, I've developed a sense of the type of triggers that I prefer, I guess I should say, rather than some other triggers that I maybe don't prefer. And I think I would probably categorize this as a trigger that I could live with, but I can also do without. Now, FN says that the trigger pull on this is going to range, and they do provide a range for this trigger, anywhere from 5.5 pounds to 7.7 pounds. So we are going to test that on the Lyman trigger gauge here in a moment, but let's go ahead and pull it a couple of times and just see how it does. Once again, it is unloaded, of course. Now, this does have the hinged safety design, reminiscent of maybe a Smith & Wesson M&P, so it's not going to have the safety dingus like maybe a Glock would, or maybe an HK, something like that. So you know, depending on your preference. Now, I will say, and again, this is merely opinion. You may agree or disagree. Please feel free to share your comments, of course. I find that this trigger actually, from at least a functionality standpoint, this little safety wedge, so to speak, or lever, I like it a little bit better than the Smith & Wesson. I think it feels a little bit more substantial to my finger, which is nice. I feel like it's better quality, and it may not be, but just from a feel standpoint and from a look standpoint, I feel like it is. So you may differ on that, of course. So as we move the trigger, there's going to be some resistance here. I can tell it's pretty tight, but it's comfortable to pull back to the wall. And so once I get to the wall, it is a firm wall. And then there's the break. And I will say it's a pretty crisp break, but there's a little bit of mush in there right up to the crispness. I know that sounds kind of crazy. You'll have to pull the trigger on this for yourself and see what you think. But I do feel like it's not quite as crisp as something like maybe a PPQ or even a P320, something like that. There's just a little bit more beef there. So from a reset standpoint, it does have a nice tactile audible reset. I do like the reset on this quite a bit. So once again, I'll go ahead and start from the beginning here. There's our uptake, a little bit of creep, and we get to the wall. And again, it's firm trigger. And then we've got our break. And then we've got our reset. So all in all, again, I think it's a trigger I could live with if I had to. If somebody said this is the gun you're going to have to use, okay, well, I could do that for sure. So let's go ahead and put this to the test. We might have to do this a couple of times. Some of these safety triggers can be a little bit finicky. Okay, so I got 6 pounds, 4.2 ounces on that. That falls right within the range, the advertised range, kind of right in the middle, really. We'll do this one or two more times just to see. I tend to mess at least one of these up, so we'll see what happens. Okay, 6 pounds, 2.7 ounces. That's actually pretty consistent, probably the most consistent I've been on camera, which is pretty cool. So I'm sure I'll have to mess this one up then. We'll see. All right, that's actually pretty remarkable. 6 pounds, 4.6 ounces. So it's not a bad trigger. I think that falls kind of, in my opinion, and this is merely opinion. You may agree or disagree, but I feel like that's on the higher end of weight from what I prefer, even on a carry gun. I really like anywhere from a high 4 pounds, so maybe 4 pound, 10 ounces or 8 ounces even, well, 10 ounces really, up to about 5.5 pounds or maybe 6 pounds. And that would be about kind of my preferred range, and I prefer a pretty crisp trigger the heavier it gets. So again, I could definitely live with this, but it's not my favorite. So the one other criticism I have of this gun, and I have to come back to the magazines for this, and this is not the only gun that does this. There are some other guns out there, including actually the Springfield Armory XD Mod 2. The flat base magazine actually has a little bit of a notch that comes out beyond the grip, and generally speaking, I'm not very fond of that because it kind of dictates where your fingers need to be rather than your fingers falling naturally where they need to be. So it does hold your fingers. Now, thankfully, this actually it fits my fingers reasonably well. I've got kind of average large hands, I guess, not huge mitts, but pretty decent size. And so thankfully it fits. Now you'll notice that my pinky kind of just naturally hugs right under it, which is fine. Now the Mod 2, and I don't have the Mod 2 with me right now, but I found that I actually did not like the flat base magazine on it as much at all. In fact, I had a couple of viewers suggest some aftermarket parts for that one to switch out, which I thank very much. If you've got suggestions on this as well, feel free to share them. But overall, again, between what all comes with the gun, and I think I picked this up for around $550, having the 3 magazines, the upgraded night sights on it, and very, very nice fit and finish on the firearm. It certainly, from at least a value standpoint, is top notch. It's a great value, and I think FN really does a good job putting this gun together. I'm not going to take this one apart because it takes apart exactly like most any other striker polymer firearm. You've got your takedown notch. You do have to pull the trigger, and everything else comes apart just as you would expect. And the fit and finish on the inside matches the outside. It's very, very good. So let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of range footage and see how this does. And when we come back, we'll compare it to the P320 and see how it stacks up. All right, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that footage at the range. So again, this is on request or by request. Several people have asked to compare this to the 6-hour P320 subcompact. I just so happen to have that right here. In fact, this is in a Vetter IWB holster. If you are not familiar with Vetter holsters, I would definitely check them out. They're top quality and great value. They're a great price. So got a review coming up on some Vetter holsters here before too long, including a custom one that they're doing for my Glock MOS. So very excited about that. That'll be on the way. So we've got an unloaded, of course, P320 subcompact. Now, I generally don't do this. I do have a loaded magazine here. I don't have any empty magazines right now, but I do want to make sure to compare this to the flat magazine. So, of course, I will not rack the slide. And then once we're done, we'll check the gun again just for the sake of argument. I don't want any hate mail because I'm messing with loaded firearms. I definitely am not, for sure. So let's go ahead and compare these two guys and see how they stack up. I've got them basically butt to butt, or back of the slide to back of the slide. And from a length standpoint, the FN falls about 1/10 of an inch longer than the P320 subcompact. From a height standpoint, not even quite 1/10 of an inch the P320 has on the FN. So FN's just a hair shorter. From a width standpoint, the P320, I believe, is 1.4 inches. So the FN being 1.35, I mean, they're darn close to each other, of course. And then from a price standpoint, they're basically the same price. Now, a big difference, and let me go ahead and get this magazine back out of here. We'll go ahead and make sure, once again, we are totally unloaded. And of course, that's still the empty magazine for the FN. One thing to consider with these two guns, or I guess a couple of differences between the two, they fall pretty close in the same price range. I think the SIG is going to actually be a few dollars more, and this one does have the upgraded night sights on it. The standard version still has steel sights, but they're just a standard 3-dot setup, and I think you can get that mid-5s or maybe even a little bit lower than that, maybe 540, somewhere around there, depending, of course, where you are. I'm talking, I'm in Kansas, so kind of middle of the country, so to speak. But again, from a value standpoint, they're pretty close. Now, the one edge I would give to the FN is you do get the 3 magazines. You only get 2 with the P320, and extra magazines are expensive for the SIG. I mean, you're looking, you know, if you're going to do an extra magazine, and if I were to get extra magazines for this, I would not be getting the standard magazines like this guy, the 12-round here. I would actually be going for either a compact or a full-size magazine, so either a 15 or a 17-round magazine, because you're going to be paying basically the same money, but you're getting extra rounds. And if it's going to be a backup magazine for you, you might as well have a few extra rounds, or at least that's my opinion. Of course, your mileage may vary there. And then from a grip standpoint, you do get the changeable back straps with the FN versus the SIG. And if you've been following some of my SIG videos, any of the P320s, I've done them all. Feel free to check them out. I'd love to hear from you on those. I started, and these actually come stock with a small grip. And it doesn't have the light laser or grenade launcher rail or anything like that. And the original one on this was actually black. So this was around the holidays, and I ended up, I was able to find a medium FDE grip, and so I went with that. Certainly a little bit more comfortable. There's a little bit more beef in my hands, because I will say, if I'm just holding these two guns, if I'm merely holding them, and I'm not going to put the magazine back in this one, but I will say that the P320 subcompact is a little bit slide heavy, and I've mentioned that in my other videos as well. It's not quite as slide heavy once you get a medium or a large grip on there, at least in my opinion, but I do find that it's more slide heavy overall. So the balance is a little different between the two. Once you get on the range, I don't find that there's really much of a difference. There's not a hindrance one way or the other, but if you have the opportunity and you're thinking about either of these two guns, or of course any of the other options in this same double stack subcompact arena, I would certainly encourage you to get out on the range and test them if you can. If you've got a local gun store that's got a range and allows you to rent firearms, a lot of them do, try and experiment with them. In some ranges, including the one that I go to, Centerfire Shooting Sports, if you rent one, they'll allow you to test any gun within the same caliber. So if the 9mm here, they let you test this in a 9, and maybe a Glock 26 and a Smith & Wesson 9C, XD Mod 2, that sort of thing. So you can really kind of play around with which one or which ones fit the bill for you, because a lot of it comes down to, and you guys know this, I know you do, it comes down to your own feel and the shape of your hands and what you're comfortable with and what features you're after, of course, and then your budget may dictate a little bit of this as well. So at the end of the day, both of these guns are great. Now, of course, this review is not about the P320 subcompact. In fact, I'll go ahead and get this guy back out of the way. It really is about the FN, but at the end of the day, at least for the FN, it is a high quality firearm, and I think it's overlooked a little bit when people start talking about some of the different manufacturers, because Glock and Sig Sauer and some of these other manufacturers, they roll off the tongue. People are very familiar with them. There is not we're not lacking in reviews, whether it be YouTube, kind of like this one, or magazine articles, that sort of thing. There are a lot of places to read up on them. With the FN or FNS, there definitely are some reviews and some opinions out there, but there aren't quite as many. And so I think it's somewhat of an undiscovered firearm a little bit, or not as discovered as some of the other ones. So if you're looking for something maybe that's a little bit more unusual or unique compared to your buddies who are picking up Smith & Wessons and Glocks and that sort of thing, perhaps this might be the way to go too. That might be a driver for you. And again, you're getting a lot of value for the buck with all the pieces and accessories and such that come with it. So overall, it's a great gun. Fit and finish is top notch. I like it quite a bit. Is it something that I would keep forever? Probably not. I have the P320, which fills the niche for a subcompact double stack firearm. But again, it's a great gun. And if somebody said this is a gun you have to use, I'd use it. So I'd love to hear your opinion. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think, your experiences with this, and I'm looking forward to reading those. I love the comments, and I try to respond to each one as best I can. And otherwise, thanks for joining me today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time.